2019 Dodge Durango GT. This one has light duty brakes. It has a solid rotor in the back, so that will matter on your rotors, and according to your option code sticker, you have to look up and make sure it's got light duty brakes for the brake pads. Alright, I think the only difference is just the difference in the thickness of the pad. But the pads are exactly looking the same. Alright, so you get the front, you got vehicle jacked up, supported properly. The 22 millimeter for the lug nuts, remove the wheel, and then next you need to do is remove the retainer spring. All you gotta do is just pry it up a little bit, pry it out of there. Get it up somehow. They come up pretty easy, but I don't know. 2019 Dodge Durango GT. Front brake pads and rotors. What you need to do is jack it up, support it properly. Remove your front tires. 22 millimeter for the lug nuts. And this is light duty brakes. Has non-vented rear rotors. You'll need to know that for the rotors, and then you need to know if it's heavy duty brake pads or not. There's an option code. You have to go and get the option code off the little sticker. And also, I think the only difference in the pads is the material and the thickness. It might be just a little bit thicker. But anyway, so you need to get these calipers off. So you need to remove the retainer spring. I go underneath here and I just pried it up and it came off, and you just wiggle it that way. Put it off to the side, and then you got these that go over the covers for the caliper slide bolts. There's two of them, one here and one there. Remove these, put them with your spring so you don't forget them. The next you need to do is remove the two slide pin bolts, and those are a 11 millimeter. I don't have an 11 millimeter, so I used a Torx, which is a T55. So this here is 11 millimeter right here, and it will fit in there and slides past it, and it will work. I'll just take this off just to give me some room for my caliper to move around when I get it off. So I remove those two. Okay, here's my slide pins. I removed them. If you don't remove them, or at least get them all the way in, sometimes they'll stick inside the hole and they give you a hard time removing the caliper. Next you need to do is push the piston in just a little bit. What you want to do is stick your screwdriver inside the fin of the rotor and just pull on it just a little bit, just to push the pistons in. That way you can just pull the caliper right up. Okay. Set it up on top. What you want to do is you want to inspect it for leaks. So you want to remove your pad. Got little clips in there, little springs. Remove that. Inspect your boots, inspect your pistons, see if they're cracked. There's no leaks, no cracks, so we're good. Now you can do is get your tool and push them in there. If you don't have the tool, then you have to use a C-clamp. Put a pad in there, in between here and there. Tighten it up, and that will bring the pistons in. Okay, if you're using your tool or a C-clamp, make sure the hose is not pinched, so it's not restricting the return flow of the brake fluid. And also when you're pushing the pistons in, you get an idea on how hard they are going in. Okay, because if they're going in really hard, they might be frozen. And just double check to make sure that you don't have your line pinched. And if it's not pinched, but it's still hard to push in, then you need to release the line fitting at the hose to see if you have a restriction between the hose and the caliper. And if it still doesn't push in, then there's a problem possibly in your hose or your caliper. So then after that, tighten that back up a little bit, and then go ahead and release your bleeder at the caliper. And if the piston's pushed in, then you know you got a bad flex hose, because they swell up on the metal parts, because the metal rusts and it squeezes the hose and restricts the flow. All right, clean up your calipers with a wire brush. Then after you did that, go ahead and rub some brake lube inside your sleeves, bushings. All right, and then now that's done. So now you can set that off to the side, and then you can remove your caliper bracket. Caliper bracket takes an E55, an E55. No, it's an E20. Sorry, it's an E20, which is like an inverted Torx. Okay, if you don't have that, then you can use a 5/8. All right, the 5/8 fits on there. So, but it's an E20. And there's two of those. There's one here and there's one there. Okay, and be careful with your brake pad, it doesn't fall out, land on your foot or whatever. And when you undo the last one, make sure you hold on to the bracket. All right, here's my bolts, 2 of them. Here's my caliper bracket, and you can tell where the pads hit. So you need to clean that surface up, and then put some paint on it. All right. And also you need to remove your rotor if you're replacing the rotor. And Dodge and Jeep, they like to use a little O-ring. Put an O-ring right here. And sometimes the O-ring swells up, so you can't reuse them after you get them off. So I use a little pick, and I go in there and pick it and pull it out. Because if you don't remove it, the rotor won't come off. So next you need to remove the rotor. If the rotor's bonded on there from the rust, then you need to smack it, and the vibration will help it come loose, or put some penetrant on it and then hit it. All right, caliper's off. Now you need to do is clean up the hub. The hub is a stepped hub, which means it's lower in the center than on the outside and the inside. So you need to clean this surface up. Try not to remove any metal to make it lower, because you don't want to do that, and you want to make sure you don't have no chunks of rust in there, because if you got chunks of rust in there, then the rotor's not going to sit straight, and it will wobble when it's going down the road, and cause your caliper to do that, and you'll feel it in the steering wheel or your brake pedal. Okay, you need to clean up your hub. Once you got your hub clean, you just put a light film of anti-seize on it. All right, this is what I use: angle die grinder with a sand disc, this one Brillo pad, and a sharp screwdriver to go between my lugs and the hub. All right, and also you need to clean this up, and then put some paint on it. And one thing, these things get wore out from the brake pads. See right here, this is a divot. They get really bad, and you have to replace them. But otherwise, if they're not too bad, you can lightly sand them down a little bit. So I'm going to put some paint on it and let it dry. Okay, you got the hub clean. Put a little bit of anti-seize on there, on the whole thing. Put your brake pad with the springs on it into the pistons. Put some brake lube inside your slides there. Also clean your rotor with some soap and water. Get the shipping oil off of it. Put some brake lube on your caliper bracket where the pads sit. And go ahead and put your rotor up on there. Put your O-ring on there to hold it. If the O-ring's too big, then you might have to get a lug nut to hold the rotor straight and flat. Okay, got the caliper bracket on there. Go ahead and snug up your bolts, and then you want to torque them to 110 foot-pounds. After you do that, you want to grab your brake pad. One with the indicator on it goes towards the rotation of the rotor. The rotor spins this way, so go ahead and stick it on there for the rotation of the rotor, so it's right there. I put vice grips on here lightly just to hold the rotor flat. I didn't put a lot of tension on them, just enough to put it on there because my O-ring swelled up and it's too big. All right, so now you can go ahead and slide your caliper and put that on there. It takes 2 hands. Get it up in there lined up. Okay. Make sure it's not twisted. Now you can get your caliper slides, put them in there, push them in there, and line them up, and you can feel it. When you push them in there, you can feel it go into the thread holes. And then you want to start them by hand, and then snug them up, and then torque them to, what was it, 27 foot-pounds. Make sure you remove your tool. Don't leave it in there. Then you got your little plugs. Go ahead, put the plugs back over the top of the boots. All right. And next, you go ahead and put that back in there if you took it out. Next, we need to do is put our springs in there. Okay, now you got your spring. Get it lined up against there like that. Okay. Bring it in and push it in there. Get them started. See how they're started? And go ahead and push them down inside there. Make sure they're in there. You want to give them a little tap with a screwdriver and a hammer also. All right. Other than that, tap them in there. Okay, you're all set. And we'll complete this side of the brakes. Now you can go do the driver's side exactly the same way. It's just on the other side. All right, so once you got both sides done, you can go ahead and put your tires on, torque them to 110 foot-pounds. Go ahead and lower it down to the ground. Go inside the vehicle, start it, push the pedal to the floor a couple times. Okay, because you want to bring up the gap, because you push the pistons and you want to get up that gap in there. Make sure your pedal's tight. Because if you don't do that before you put in drive or reverse, you're not going to have any brakes until you pump up the pedal. So always make sure you pump up the pedal before you put it in drive or reverse. And then after you pump up the pedal and get it nice and done, then you can go ahead and open your hood and double check your fluid level in your reservoir. And that will be it for your front brakes. Hopefully I helped you out, and hopefully you can help me out by subscribing to me, and I appreciate it.